Ali MacGraw at 85 reveals the horrors of being married to Steve McQueen. If there's one Hollywood romance that looked perfect from the outside, but was pure devastation behind closed doors, it's this one. Ali MacGraw wasn't just America's sweetheart after Love Story. She was the symbol of grace, class, and heartbreaking beauty. But off-screen, she was drowning. When she fell for Steve McQueen, the king of cool, the rebel every man wanted to be, and every woman wanted to tame, it was supposed to be a love for the ages. What she got instead was silence, isolation, jealousy, and the slow erasure of everything she once was. Now at 85, Ali MacGraw is finally speaking the truth. And what she's revealing about their relationship is worse than anyone imagined. Because behind Steve McQueen's steely blue eyes and smirking charm was a storm that nearly destroyed her. And it all started with one decision, the moment she said yes to the getaway. The rise of Ali MacGraw. Before the glamour, before the headlines, before Steve McQueen. Ali MacGraw was just a young girl in Bedford Village, New York, living in a house that felt more like a battlefield than a home. Her father was an artist, talented but tormented by alcoholism. Her mother was fierce, often combative. Together they created an environment filled with arguments and instability. Ali, caught in the crossfire, became a quiet, anxious child, searching for love in places it didn't exist, and battling self-doubt that followed her into adulthood. That pain eventually pushed her toward reinvention. After college, she entered the world of fashion, quickly catching the eye of Diana Vreeland, the legendary Vogue editor, who saw a spark behind her soft features and steely eyes. With Vreeland's backing, Ali began modeling, and for the first time, she wasn't just surviving, she was becoming someone. Hollywood took notice. In 1969, she landed her first major film role in Goodbye Columbus, a romantic comedy that made her an overnight name. But it wasn't just her beauty that lit up the screen. It was something deeper, a quiet vulnerability, a grace that couldn't be taught. It was around this time that she met Robert Evans, already a powerful figure in the industry, serving as the head of production at Paramount Pictures. Evans wasn't just charmed by her, he was captivated. He saw in Ali a timeless elegance that could carry a generation of films, and with one bold move, he cast her in Love Story, a film no one knew would define her forever. Released in 1970, Love Story wasn't just a hit, it was a cultural event. Its tragic love tale struck a chord across the world, and Ali, portraying the doomed but radiant Jenny, became the face of a generation. The line "love means never having to say you're sorry" echoed in every corner of pop culture, and so did her name. With the film's explosive success, grossing over $100 million worldwide, Ali MacGraw had officially become Hollywood royalty. And behind the scenes, her fairy tale seemed to continue. She and Evans married in 1969, and in 1971, they welcomed their only child, Joshua. Professionally, she was unstoppable. Personally, she had a husband who supported her and a family that grounded her. To the outside world, it looked like Ali MacGraw had it all. But fate was about to introduce a man who would change everything. A man who didn't just walk into her life, he crashed into it at full speed. And once he arrived, there was no turning back. The getaway that changed everything. It was 1972, when Ali MacGraw received the offer that would set fire to everything she had built. The Getaway, an action-packed thriller directed by Sam Peckinpah and starring none other than Steve McQueen, Hollywood's reigning king of cool. Robert Evans, her husband and studio head, personally pushed for her to take the role. To him, it was another golden opportunity for his wife to shine, but for Ali, something felt off. She hesitated. Publicly, she said she didn't want to leave her young son behind. But privately, there was a deeper fear, a quiet warning in her gut. As she later admitted in her memoir Moving Pictures, "I knew I was going to get in some serious trouble with Steve." And she was right. From the moment Ali stepped onto the set in Texas, the chemistry between her and McQueen was electric. It wasn't just physical, it was chemical, explosive. Everyone could feel it. She described McQueen as someone who changed the temperature of every room he entered. Men admired him, women were drawn to him. He didn't just act dangerous, he was. McQueen had lived a life built on survival, abandoned by his father, bounced between homes, raised in reform schools. He came from nothing, and yet by 1972, he had become the ultimate anti-hero, the face of rebellion in films like Bullet and The Great Escape. But behind that charisma was a man haunted by his past. And Ali. She was drawn to it all. Despite being married to Evans, she fell hard. The affair began quickly, quietly, and then not so quietly. Hollywood couldn't look away. Tabloids feasted on the scandal. Gossip columns buzzed. For fans, it was thrilling. Two of the most beautiful people in the world colliding on and off the screen. And The Getaway? It became a box office smash. The on-screen tension between MacGraw and McQueen lit up theaters, only adding fuel to the real-life firestorm behind the scenes. But while fans celebrated their red-hot romance, the fallout was brutal. Robert Evans, the man who gave Ali her career-defining role, was blindsided. He had trusted her, professionally, emotionally, personally, and in one swift turn, that trust was shattered. Their divorce became one of Hollywood's most talked-about betrayals. It wasn't just a love triangle, it was a public unraveling of reputations, marriages, and friendships. In fact, their breakup became so infamous, it was later dramatized in The Offer, the Paramount Plus series about the making of The Godfather. In July 1973, Ali MacGraw and Steve McQueen got married. To outsiders, it seemed like a powerful union. Two icons, madly in love, ready to take on the world. But Ali didn't walk into a marriage. She walked into a cage. Marriage to McQueen, the glamour and the price. From the outside, it looked like a Hollywood fairy tale. Two of the most desired stars on the planet, newly married, living in a Malibu beach house with the ocean at their doorstep and millions at their feet. But the reality behind the photographs was far from magical. From the very beginning, Steve McQueen made it clear. This was going to be his world, and Ali MacGraw was expected to fit into it. He insisted she sign a prenuptial agreement, stripping away any financial claim in the event of divorce. And then came the true cost. He demanded she quit acting. At the height of her fame, with the entire industry waiting for her next move, Ali MacGraw was told to walk away. And she did. Out of fear, out of love, out of a desperate hope that maybe this man, this complicated, wounded, intoxicating man, could be the one to give her the stability she'd craved since childhood. "I didn't want to lose him," she later admitted, "so I gave up everything." Their life in Malibu began with sunshine and parties, barbecues on the beach, long walks along the shore. Friends came and went, but the couple seemed inseparable. But behind closed doors, the shadows crept in. Steve McQueen, the action star worshipped for his confidence, was a man deeply scarred by abandonment. Left by his father, sent away by his mother, raised in juvenile homes, his past followed him like a ghost, and that ghost began haunting their marriage. He didn't trust easily, especially not women, and his jealousy became suffocating. Ali said he would grow angry if she so much as glanced at another man. He questioned her constantly, watched her every move, and yet the double standard was glaring. He openly flirted, partied, and was rumored to have affairs without guilt or consequence. One of the most heartbreaking sacrifices for Ali wasn't just the roles she turned down, it was the silence she was forced to live with. Instead of being on set or in the spotlight, she was folding laundry, cooking, raising her son, playing the role of the perfect wife to a man who didn't want an equal. He wanted obedience. She described it herself. "I played cook, cleaning lady, simple woman to the hilt." And still it wasn't enough. His need for control didn't stop at her career. It bled into every corner of their life together. Where they went, who they saw, what she wore. The image of Steve McQueen had to be preserved, and Ali MacGraw was expected to stay behind it, quiet and compliant. And then came the drinking. McQueen's alcohol and drug use escalated, and soon Ali found herself reaching for the bottle too. What started as a shared glass of wine became an escape, a way to dull the loneliness, the heartbreak, the ache of giving up her identity for a love that seemed to only take, never give. What once felt like passion had become a prison. And still, she stayed. Because when you give up your voice for someone, it's hard to remember how to scream for help. Living in McQueen's shadow. For a while, Ali MacGraw convinced herself it was just the price of love. The Malibu beach house. The stolen glances. The rare moments when Steve McQueen let his guard down and smiled like he used to. These flashes of intimacy kept her hopeful, hoping that maybe beneath the storm, the man she fell for still existed. But as the months passed, the walls closed in. McQueen's jealousy transformed into obsession. He didn't just question her loyalty, he monitored it. If she spoke to another man, even briefly, it ignited a firestorm. If she looked too happy, too confident, too independent, it was a threat. He wanted control over everything, and that included her sense of self. Meanwhile, he moved freely. He drank, he disappeared, he partied. Whispers of affairs followed him like perfume. And Ali, once the toast of Hollywood, now spent her days alone, silencing her suspicions, repressing her anger, and pretending everything was fine. She had become invisible in her own life. She stopped reading scripts, stopped chasing roles. Hollywood, once desperate for her attention, had moved on. Actresses with fewer credits but more freedom stepped into the spotlight she left behind. And still, she stayed, pouring her energy into raising her son Joshua, cooking for Steve, maintaining the illusion that their marriage was something sacred. But behind the doors of their home, the silence was louder than any applause she had ever heard. She began drinking more. At first, it was just to take the edge off. Then it became routine. A glass of wine to dull the ache. A few more to forget the humiliation. But the pain always returned. And when it did, it brought with it a deeper question. Who had she become? The same woman who had once commanded the world's attention now couldn't speak her own truth in her own home. Every day was a careful performance. One wrong line, one wrong look, and McQueen would either explode or retreat into cold, punishing silence. And yet, she still loved him. That's what made it so devastating. Because loving someone who doesn't trust you, who controls you, who slowly erases everything that made you whole, is a kind of heartbreak that leaves scars no camera can see. By the mid-70s, the dream had clearly curdled. The beach house, once their sanctuary, now echoed with unspoken arguments and heavy silences. And Ali, who had once played the radiant Jenny in Love Story, now played a role no one had scripted for her, the forgotten wife of a fading legend. But she was reaching her limit. And when she finally found the courage to speak her mind, the response she got shattered every illusion she had left. Collapse, betrayals, drinking, and divorce. By 1976, the cracks in Ali MacGraw and Steve McQueen's marriage had become impossible to ignore. To the public, he was still the rugged action star racing through desert highways and leaping fences on a motorcycle. But behind closed doors, the man who had once swept Ali off her feet was unraveling. His addictions, booze, drugs, late nights, tightened their grip, and Ali, already emotionally drained, began sinking with him. He would vanish for hours, sometimes days. When he came back, he was cold, suspicious, or completely shut off. Conversations became arguments, arguments became silence, and silence became a way of life. Meanwhile, the rumors kept swirling. Everyone in Hollywood seemed to have a story about McQueen's latest fling. Young actresses, models, bartenders. No woman seemed off limits. And Ali, once the queen of love stories, was now the woman everyone pitied. The woman who had sacrificed everything and was now being humiliated. At first, she didn't believe the whispers. She clung to denial, to hope. She told herself he was just lost, just troubled, just going through something. But then came the confirmations, the late-night calls, the nervous glances from friends, the moments when he didn't bother lying anymore. Her heart broke quietly, completely. And in the depths of that heartbreak, she reached for the same thing that was killing him, the bottle. Ali's drinking worsened. What had started as a coping mechanism turned into a daily ritual, a desperate attempt to feel anything but the ache of betrayal and the emptiness of the life she had chosen. Eventually, she cracked. In 1977, she told McQueen what she had been too afraid to say for years. She wanted her career back. She wanted to act again, to reclaim the version of herself that existed before the marriage, before the silence, before the compromises that had left her hollow. It was a simple request. And McQueen responded with 6 words that ended everything. "In that case, we are filing for divorce." No discussion, no apology, just a cold declaration that her value was conditional and now it had run out. It was the final betrayal. She had given up everything for him, her fame, her future, her identity, and in return she was discarded the moment she tried to stand again. With the weight of that rejection crushing her, Ali accepted a role in Convoy, a film by Sam Peckinpah. It wasn't just a job, it was a statement, a line in the sand. She was done waiting for permission to exist. And though McQueen briefly toyed with reconciliation, it was too late. The love, the trust, the hope, it was gone. By 1978, the divorce was finalized. The fantasy was over. But destiny wasn't finished with her yet. Because just 2 years later, Steve McQueen would be gone forever. McQueen's death and Ali's haunting regret. In 1980, just 2 years after their bitter divorce, the man who had once been Hollywood's most indestructible icon was gone. Steve McQueen died at just 50 years old from pleural mesothelioma, a rare aggressive cancer caused by exposure to asbestos. The news hit the entertainment world like a punch to the chest. The king of cool, the rebel who cheated death on screen again and again, had finally faced something he couldn't outrun. And for Ali MacGraw, the grief was almost unbearable. They weren't together anymore. Their marriage had ended in silence and sorrow. But his death wasn't just the loss of an ex. It was the loss of a chapter that had defined her, broken her, and in some strange, twisted way, completed her. She had loved him, madly, painfully, desperately. Even after everything, the control, the betrayal, the manipulation, she had hoped he'd someday find peace, that maybe years down the line, they could sit across from each other as friends, 2 survivors of the same storm. Instead, she was left with a silence that no apology could fill. At the funeral, the industry mourned the legend, but Ali mourned the man, not the actor, not the icon, the man who held her when the world felt cold, the man whose demons swallowed him before she could ever pull him back. Looking back, she described it with haunting clarity. "I wish we had both grown old sober." That one sentence carried decades of pain, years of lost chances. A love story that could have been legendary if only it had been healthy. She didn't speak of him as a monster. She didn't cast herself as a victim. What she carried wasn't hate, it was heartbreak. It's easy to remember Steve McQueen as the movie star on a motorcycle, outrunning villains and winning over women. But Ali MacGraw remembered the man who flinched at closeness, who feared abandonment so deeply he built walls no one could climb, and in trying to love him she lost herself. His death marked the end of something enormous, not just a relationship, but a version of her life that could never be reclaimed. There would be no closure, no reconciliation, just memories and the weight of everything unsaid. And so, at just 41, Ali MacGraw found herself alone again. Not just without Steve McQueen, but without the version of herself that had once believed in fairy tales. Life after McQueen, addiction, recovery, and reinvention. After Steve McQueen's death, Ali MacGraw stood at a crossroads. She wasn't just grieving a man, she was grieving years of lost identity, stolen dreams, and emotional numbness. Her career had flatlined, Hollywood had moved on, and her personal life was fractured, scarred by love that had left her hollow. So she did what survivors do. She tried to start over. She returned to acting, taking on the 1978 film Convoy, her first major role since walking away from Hollywood for McQueen. It was followed by a 14-episode arc on the hit series Dynasty in 1984. But the magic of her earlier stardom wasn't there. She wasn't the fresh-faced ingenue from Love Story anymore. She was older, warier, and in many ways, invisible. The roles were fewer. The phone didn't ring like it used to, and deep down, she didn't have the fight left to chase the spotlight. What had once been her dream now felt like someone else's story. But the true battle wasn't on the screen, it was inside her. Her drinking, once a way to cope, had become a cage. The pain she thought she buried resurfaced with every glass. The career she gave up, the marriage that consumed her, the child she tried to protect, the woman she used to be. By the early 1990s, She knew she was standing at a breaking point. And this time, she chose herself. Ali checked into the Betty Ford Center, a move that would change everything. There, she faced the addiction she'd spent years hiding. But more than that, she confronted the emotional wreckage left by fame, love, and betrayal. She began to heal, not with denial, but with honesty. And in 1991, she did something few in Hollywood dared. She told the truth. Her memoir, Moving Pictures, wasn't just a celebrity tell-all. It was a raw, unfiltered look at the price of beauty, success, and self-betrayal. She detailed her painful childhood, her turbulent marriage, her spiral into alcoholism, and the desperate silence she lived in for years. Readers didn't just relate, they felt seen. The book became a bestseller, not because she painted herself as a victim, but because she owned her mistakes. She didn't glorify the past, she dissected it. By 1994, Ali MacGraw had done something unthinkable for someone once considered Hollywood royalty. She walked away. She left Los Angeles and moved to Santa Fe, New Mexico, a place as far from paparazzi flashes and studio lots as one could imagine. There, surrounded by mountains, animals, and quiet, she finally began living life on her own terms. No cameras, no scripts, no compromises. Just herself, sober, still, and free. The woman at 85. Today at 85, Ali MacGraw is no longer the girl from Love Story. She's not the red carpet icon, the tear-streaked beauty clinging to fame, or the woman defined by her marriage to a legend. She's something far more powerful, someone who survived. In Santa Fe, far from the flashbulbs and scripts, Ali found what years in Hollywood never gave her: peace. She lives a quiet life, surrounded by nature, animals, and art. She spends her mornings in meditation, her afternoons tending to her garden, and her evenings wrapped in the calm that used to feel impossible. After decades of addiction, trauma, and emotional turmoil, she has now been sober for over 30 years, a feat she once believed was out of reach. "I used to rewrite the past," she said, "fantasize about the future, but now I believe in living fully to the very best of my ability." There's no bitterness in her voice, no trace of resentment, just a quiet grace earned through years of surviving what most wouldn't. She never remarried, and that wasn't an accident. Ali chose to dedicate her later years to self-exploration, healing, and creativity, not to fitting herself into someone else's story. Her closest relationships became her anchors, her son Joshua, old friends, and even a surprising reconnection with Ryan O'Neal, her Love Story co-star. In 2016, they reunited on stage for a touring production of Love Letters. Audiences were instantly transported back to the magic of 1970, when their chemistry lit up screens around the world. But for Ali, it wasn't about reliving the past, it was about reclaiming it, on her own terms. She also found purpose beyond film. Partnering with Ibu, a global women's fashion collective, Ali helped design clothing that empowered female artisans around the world. For a woman who once sacrificed everything to please a man, this work meant everything. It wasn't just fabric and thread, it was legacy. And even now, in her 9th decade of life, she doesn't flinch when asked about Steve McQueen. She doesn't romanticize him. She doesn't demonize him either. "There were wonderful days and dreadful days," she said. "I'm not a victim in any way. There were many times that were just ghastly. But there's no self-pity, only truth." Because after all these years, the most powerful thing Ali MacGraw has revealed isn't what Steve McQueen did to her, it's what she learned to do for herself. She stopped apologizing. She stopped shrinking. She finally became the hero of her own story. Ali MacGraw's life wasn't a love story. It was a survival story. She loved one of the most iconic men in Hollywood and lost herself in the process. She gave up fame, her voice, her identity, all for a man who couldn't love her the way she needed. And when it all came crashing down, she didn't just walk away, she rebuilt. With honesty, with grace, with fire. Now at 85, she stands as a living reminder that even the most beautiful fairy tales can hide unspoken pain, and that real strength comes from learning to speak your truth, even decades later. So what do you think of Ali MacGraw's courage? Was her story a cautionary tale, or one of ultimate redemption? Let us know in the comments. We read every one of them. And if you were moved by this story, help us share it. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you never miss a story that deserves to be told. Thanks for watching.